The Dive Bar Encounter. My name's Cadence, and I work the closing shift at a cozy little dive bar tucked away in the quieter corner of town, just off the highway. It's got a back entrance that opens to the main town, nothing glamorous, just a dimly lit joint where the jukebox churns out the same old classic rock tunes and the regulars know each other like family. Our crowd is mostly locals, truckers rolling through, or the occasional weary traveler hunting for a strong drink. I enjoy it, honestly. The routine's steady, the tips are surprisingly solid, and I've gotten the hang of managing the bar's eclectic mix. The chatty ones, the flirts, the silent sippers, and those who just want to be left alone. Weekends are chaotic, but weekdays, I'm on my own, no barback, no coworkers dropping by. It's quieter, sure, but I miss the company. I stay sharp, though, because with the kind of crowd we draw, a bar fight isn't exactly rare. That's why I noticed him right away. It was past 1 a.m. on a Tuesday when he strolled in. I'd peg him as late 40s, clean-cut, polished in a way that stood out in a place like this. He wore a black turtleneck under a sleek trench coat, dressed sharp but not flashy, with an air of quiet wealth, not the loud, showy kind. He scanned the room slowly before striding to the bar and settling in with perfect posture, which I found oddly striking. When I approached, he eyed the bottles behind me and ordered a top-shelf whiskey without blinking. As I poured, he flashed a warm smile and asked if I enjoyed working here. It was a harmless enough question, so I answered honestly, saying I did, and tossing in a lighthearted quip about bartending life. He didn't give off a creepy vibe. Not at all. He had this approachable single dad at a baseball game energy, like he'd high-five the whole team. We chatted a bit, which was fine since the bar was dead quiet. Then he asked if I ever dreamed of doing something bigger. It was an odd shift, but not outright alarming in the context of a late-night bar chat. I gave him my practiced bartender grin and said I was content for now. He nodded, sipped his drink, and seemed almost let down by my response, though I couldn't figure out why. After a long pause, he suddenly asked what time I got off. That caught me off guard. He hadn't been flirty at all, so I was a bit disappointed, assuming this was just another guy fishing for my number. I smiled vaguely, dodging the question politely, and started wiping the counter to signal I was done chatting. He didn't push, just gave a knowing smile, finished his drink, and slid a crisp $100 bill across the bar like it was pocket change. Then, without another word, he vanished into the night. It felt strange, but not sinister. His demeanor was so out of place that it stuck with me, but I figured that was the end of it. I was wrong. A week later, he returned, but not alone. A woman was with him, maybe mid-30s, dressed in a way that felt forced. Trendy, but like she was trying too hard to fit in with a younger crowd. I clocked her immediately since she was new. Her smile was too quick, her movements too deliberate, like she'd rehearsed every step. As they approached the bar, I set down napkins, and before I could say a word, she leaned in with a bright, "You're so pretty." Her fingers grazed my arm, lingering just a moment too long. I laughed it off, thanking her, but something about her felt wrong. The man stayed silent, which was odd since he'd been so talkative before. They ordered drinks, and as I poured, the woman started firing off questions. How long I'd worked here, my age, typical small talk. But it didn't feel casual. Her eyes were sharp, studying me. At one point, she glanced at the man, and it was like they shared a silent conversation. Then she leaned in, voice low, and said she ran an exclusive event club. She was always scouting young, vibrant people for private parties, promising I'd make 10 grand in a weekend. I forced a chuckle, saying it sounded too good to be true. She doubled down, insisting it was legit, that girls like me worked for them, her smile never wavering, but starting to unnerve me. She kept circling back to the job, repeating words like fun, safe, exclusive. Then out of nowhere, she said, "Step outside for a second. Someone out there can explain it better." My heart raced. I wasn't playing along anymore. "I'm good," I said firmly. No smile this time. Just then, a loud group of customers burst in, breaking the tension. Her expression flickered, the mask slipping for a split second before she turned to the man. Without a word, they left. I was rattled. These strangers had just propositioned me for something shady. I told my coworkers and boss, and we agreed to stay vigilant in case they returned. My boss promised he was a 15-minute drive away if I needed him, and the bar's cameras usually kept things in check. There wasn't much else to do. Nothing they'd done was technically illegal. People at gas stations that late are often odd, so I wondered if he genuinely needed help and was just acting strange. I asked where his car was, and he pointed beyond the highway entrance. Skeptical, I glanced at the security monitor behind me. And there it was, a car parked out there. For a moment, I thought I'd misjudged him. But then it hit me. I'd just been outside, and I would have noticed a car. I looked closer at the monitor and saw movement near the car's rear bumper, someone crouching, barely out of sight. Dread washed over me. I forced a calm smile, said I'd help, but needed to grab my phone from the back. I turned slowly, not wanting to alarm him, and the second I was out of sight, I hit the panic button under the counter. The alarm blared, piercing the silence. I braced for an attack, but instead, he did something chilling. His nervous act vanished. He went still, relaxed, and gave a slow, amused grin, like this was all a game. Before I could react, he turned and bolted. I rushed to the monitors, catching him and another figure sprinting, not to the car, but into the woods behind the station. The car sat there, dark and empty. When the police arrived, it was still there, but the men were gone. No footprints, no trace. Then an officer noticed something I hadn't. The front passenger door was open. There'd been a third person inside the whole time. The police took my statement and the footage. Days later, they told me the car was stolen a week earlier, over 100 miles away. No one claimed it, no missing persons, no linked crimes, just an abandoned car with no answers. That was months ago, and there's been no progress. I don't know why gas stations are such targets, but I'm never working a night shift again. A couple of weeks ago, I was working the night shift at Walmart. It's not a terrible gig, but the hours blur together. Same shelves, same routine, same hum of fluorescent lights. I'm hoping something better comes along soon. I usually stock the electronics section, which is nice because it's quieter. Not many people rush in at 2 a.m. for phone chargers or speakers. Most customers are night owls or truckers grabbing last-minute supplies. That's why I noticed him. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just a guy wandering the aisles, maybe waiting for someone. But after a while, I realized he wasn't shopping. He wasn't even pretending to. He kept reappearing, lingering in the next aisle or standing too still by the clearance bins, not touching anything, just watching me. I told myself I was being paranoid. The store's huge, maybe he was just browsing. But his movements, always close enough for me to notice, never picking anything up, set my nerves on edge. I was waiting for him to make a move, maybe ask for my number, but he never approached. It was like he wanted me to see him, which didn't make sense. I went to radio for help, but my radio was dead. Batteries, I figured. I was about to track down a manager when a hand grabbed my arm. I nearly jumped, but a loud, cheerful woman's voice cut through. "There you are!" She launched into a ramble about looking everywhere for me, like we were old friends. I turned, confused, and saw a woman I'd never met, smiling wide, her grip tight like we went way back. Before I could speak, she leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "That guy's been recording you. Follow me." My stomach sank. I glanced back, and there he was, no longer pretending to browse, staring straight at me. Fear hit hard. I let her pull me along, grateful someone had stepped in. She kept up the act, chattering about some fake shared memory, a trip, a joke. I barely registered it. My mind was on him. Recording me? That was beyond creepy. I wanted to check if he was following, but I couldn't bring myself to look. She led me through the aisles, moving fast. I didn't even notice where we were going, just that we were putting distance between us and him. She kept the friendly act going, which started to feel excessive. I glanced back. He was gone. Relieved, I told her we were good now, that we should find my manager. But she gripped my arm tighter, saying he was still lurking. I pushed back, saying it didn't matter. What could he do in a store full of employees? I wasn't alone anymore, so the fear was fading. I told her I was serious, planting my feet and twisting my arm to break free. "You can let go now," I said. Her smile faltered, turning strange. "Just a bit further," she urged, tugging harder. I looked around. The store was nearly empty. We'd passed the registers, the self-checkout, the busy aisles. Ahead was the warehouse section, dimly lit near the side exit, the one without cameras used for deliveries. It hit me. She was leading me out. I didn't think. I screamed for help, yanking my arm free with all my strength. She stumbled, losing her grip, and shouted after me, calling my name, which I'd never told her. I sprinted toward the front, heart pounding, until I ran into a coworker who'd heard me. I told him to call security, and he did. The woman was gone. So was the man. Security footage showed them entering together. She'd been with him the whole time. His face was clear in one frame, but hers was always angled away, like she knew where the cameras were. It was planned. A failed abduction attempt, the police said. They're still investigating, and that man's face should make him easy to track, but there's no resolution yet. The scariest part? She knew my name. They didn't pick me at random. I was targeted. I tried to shake it off, but a few nights later, after closing, I saw a car parked across the street, engine off, just sitting there. I told myself it was nothing, but the feeling of being watched clung to me. As I walked to my car, keys gripped tightly, I kept my head down. When I pulled out of the lot, I checked my mirrors. The car followed, staying just far enough back to avoid suspicion. Every turn I made, it was there. I took random side streets, and it kept tailing me. Panic crept in, but I stayed calm, thinking fast. Then I made a snap decision and pulled into a police station parking lot, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles ached. The second I parked, the car sped off. For a while, nothing else happened, but I knew it wasn't over. I was right. On a slow weekday shift with barely anyone around, I was wiping down the counter, considering closing early, when the door creaked open. It was her, the woman. I discreetly texted my boss, then looked up to see her staring at me with that same fake smile. She sauntered to the bar, hands clasped neatly, and said, "Thought I'd check on you." My stomach churned, but I kept my cool. I told her we were closing soon and she needed to leave. She pouted, asking for just one old-fashioned. I hesitated, but figured making the drink would buy time for my boss to get there. I turned to mix it, and then I heard it. The soft click of the front door closing. I spun around. She was gone. Through the glass, I saw a black van idling outside. My heart sank. Then came a metallic rattle from the back door. Someone was trying to get in. I grabbed a heavy metal shaker, clutching it like a weapon, and dialed 911. The police wouldn't make it in time, and I briefly considered bolting out the front, but I froze. Then headlights flooded the lot. My boss. The rattling stopped, and the van screeched away. I spilled everything to my boss, who'd caught the van's license plate as it fled. When the police arrived, we reviewed the footage. It was worse than I'd thought. Just before the woman left, the cameras caught two masked figures crouching by the front door, waiting. Another was at the back, banging to scare me toward the front. It was terrifying. The plate was unregistered, and no progress has been made since. The only silver lining? My boss doesn't let me work alone anymore. Still, night shifts leave me on edge. I keep wondering how they knew I'd be alone. It doesn't add up. I shudder, thinking what might have happened if I'd panicked and run out the front. I used to work the night shift at a small gas station and convenience store off a quiet highway stretch. I say used to, because after what happened a few months back, I'm done with night shifts for good. It was a tiny place, the kind that barely sees customers after dark. Most of my shift was spent restocking, cleaning counters, and ringing up the occasional trucker or traveler. I remember it clearly. It was just past 2:30 a.m., the deadest part of the night. Even the truckers had tapered off, leaving me with little to do. I was scrolling on my phone, passing time, when I stepped outside for some fresh air, rubbing my hands against the chill. My breath fogged in the cold, the parking lot empty except for the pumps and the dark line of trees beyond. The neon sign buzzed faintly and the air felt heavy, almost misty. Despite the nearby highway, it was eerily quiet. As I turned to head back inside, I caught movement from the corner of my eye. I froze, spotting a figure behind one of the pumps. How had I missed him? He wore a dark red hoodie, hood up, hands in his pockets. No car in sight, so he wasn't fueling up, and he wasn't moving toward the store either, just standing there, half facing me like he was watching. I figured he was waiting for someone, but his slow, circular shuffling felt off. I went inside, keeping an eye on him through the glass, pretending not to notice. I hoped a car would pull up to get him, but after a few minutes, he started toward the door, slowly at first, then bursting in like he'd made up his mind. He approached the counter, silent at first, just staring at me like he was sizing me up. Then, in a hurried, almost scripted tone, he mumbled that his car broke down just past the pumps. He needed a jump or some gas to reach the next town. I was stunned. He wasn't even trying to sound convincing. I offered to call a tow truck, but he cut me off, shaking his head too fast. No, he said, insisting he just needed a flashlight or help checking his hood. Something was wrong. His tone, his intense stare, it felt like he was testing me. I told him to call security, and he did. The woman was gone. So was the man. Security footage showed them entering together. She'd been with him the whole time. His face was clear in one frame, but hers was always angled away, like she knew where the cameras were. It was planned. A failed abduction attempt, the police said. They're still investigating, and that man's face should make him easy to track, but there's no resolution yet. The scariest part? She knew my name. They didn't pick me at random.